Maya, please print out that document for me. It's in the documents folder on the desktop. Mom called from the kitchen. Maya nodded without answering. She had just walked into her parents' house, left her purse in the foyer, kicked off her shoes, and was now standing by the old laptop on the kitchen counter, where cookies were baking and the air smelled of roast chicken. She felt like she was back in her childhood for a moment. Everything was as usual. Her mother was bustling with dinner prep. Her father was somewhere in the living room, watching ESPN. The neighbor's chimney was smoking through the window. She moved the mouse, and the screen lit up. Her father's Gmail was open. A new email. Subject: final version of will. Maya wasn't nosy. She never snooped. I didn't pry. I didn't ask questions. But her finger automatically clicked the trackpad. The document opened. She saw her name. Or rather, I didn't see it. The house in Riverside, California. To her brother Jake. The Chase Bank account. To Jake. The cabin in the Catskills. To Jake. Even the old Camaro that had been rusting in the garage for 5 years was also his. And at the very bottom, in bold, we are deliberately not including our daughter Maya in the will, as we believe she will be able to make her own way in life and doesn't need financial support. She froze. Why are you just standing there? You've got everything open. A voice came from behind her. Maya turned around. Mom was standing there with an apple in her hand, and not a trace of worry on her face. Just ordinary fatigue. As if discussing a will was like sharing a recipe. What's this? Maya whispered. Is this real? Mom sighed. Well, yeah, but I wasn't supposed to see this. Maya repeated. But her voice was shaking. It says right here in black and white that I'm excluded from the will. Mom sat down on a bar stool and bit into her apple. Maya, don't start. You've always been independent. And Jake, well, you know him. He can barely buy groceries without step-by-step instructions. He's 35. He lives with you. Works part-time. Is single. Has credit card debt. And you're giving him everything. He's your son, Maya. And he needs more help. And I'm not your daughter, Maya said sharply. Don't be ridiculous. You were born to us too. And we're grateful. Live however you want. But you're managing fine. Her mother snapped irritably. You have your own apartment. A stable job. You've traveled to Europe. And Jake has no one to even go to movies with. Maya turned back to the screen and scrolled down. There was another sentence. We expect our daughter Maya to take care of us in our old age. Her mouth went dry. So, that's how it is. She said quietly. All the property goes to Jake. And I'm the unpaid caregiver. Mother put down the apple. Well, who's forcing you? It's just, well, naturally. You're a girl with a kind heart. We always thought you wouldn't abandon us. But he would. Maya chuckled bitterly. So everything is his, because he's weak. And I should be taking care of you because I have a kind heart. Mother turned toward the window. Maya, you're being dramatic. You've always been the sensible one. Yeah. And for that, I get $0 and 20 years of caregiving duties. And when I have no more strength, what then? Silence fell. Only the timer beeping from the oven could be heard. Maya slowly stood up from the counter. I'm leaving, she said. Where are you going? Mom looked frightened. Wait. We thought you'd understand. I understand everything, Maya said, walking toward the door. I understand who is valued in this family, and who is simply convenient. You've made your choice. So now, when you need help, ask him for it. Don't talk nonsense. The mother cried out. We did everything with the best intentions. Maya paused in the doorway. Then, accept the consequences, with the best intentions. She left without slamming the door. And for the first time in years, she didn't look back. It was cold and drizzling outside. Maya walked quickly, barely noticing the rain settling on her jacket and her hair sticking to her forehead. She didn't know where she was going. She simply walked so as not to stand still, to think, to avoid being torn apart by pain and anger. The words from the will kept flashing before her eyes. We deliberately don't include her. We expect our daughter to take care of us. The word expect sounded especially vile, as if her life were a duty, as if there had never been love in it. She got on the subway, headed home, but missed her stop. 20 minutes later, she found herself in the Starbucks where she used to meet friends. She ordered the strongest black coffee and sat by the window. Watching the pedestrians, her phone was silent. Not a single text from either her mother or her brother. And yet, thinking about it, it was all predictable. Jake had been special since childhood. He cried. And everyone immediately ran to comfort him. He broke something, Maya. You're the older one. Let it go. He skipped school, don't stress him out. She stayed quiet. Studied. Got into college. Started working. I never asked for help with tuition. I never needed help finding an apartment. I never had her car break down and needed $300. And she always heard the same thing, but you're a strong girl. You can handle it yourself. And she did. Only now it became clear that for all her independence, she received absolutely nothing. No gratitude. No recognition. Not even the right to be equal to her brother. And most importantly, no love. Not the kind expressed in words, but the kind that manifests itself in actions. In candid. In fairness. The next day, her mother didn't call. 2 days later, silence. A week passed. Maya deliberately didn't text or call. She waited. Not out of resentment, but to see if they needed her for herself or just for her usefulness. And then, 10 days later, the first text from her mother arrived. Maya, hi. How are you? Our water heater broke. We don't know who to call. Maybe you can recommend someone. Maya stared at the screen, unable to believe her eyes. No apology. No attempt to talk. Just a complaint. And another request. She didn't respond. A couple of days later, as another message. Why aren't you answering? We weren't fighting. Were we? Or have you decided to abandon us because of this paperwork nonsense? Nonsense. A will worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, in which she was simply crossed out. Nonsense. Maya blocked the number. A week later, Jake called. She hadn't intended to answer. But at the last second, she picked up. She was curious what he'd say. Oh. Hi. He mumbled. So you're completely ignoring Mom? Yep. Maya replied calmly. Are you seriously taking this so hard? It's just a will. Our parents are still alive. Everything can be changed. And if I hadn't seen it, Maya interrupted. You would have told me later. When the house was already yours, he fell silent. Listen, he continued. I wasn't involved at all. Nobody asked me. I wouldn't have taken everything for myself. But now everything works out conveniently for you. Yes. Her voice was firm. While you live in their house, using everything, living off them, your conscience is clear. Oh. Come on, he grumbled. You always hold grudges. Always play the victim. Maybe it's time to just grow up, Maya laughed. For the first time. Genuinely. Growing up sounds great. Then the grown-up can take care of their parents himself. I'm out of their lives. They can stay out of mine too. And she hung up. A month passed. Not a single call. Not a single attempt at reconciliation. Her parents seemed to seriously hope she'd change her mind. As always, she'd swallow it. Understand. Come running. And take care of everything. But she wasn't going to. A strange, yet pure, silence descended within her. Without guilt. Without duty. Without wanting to be convenient. A letter arrived in the mail paper. Handwritten. Her father's writing Maya. We hope you'll come to your senses. Everything we do is for the family's sake. Don't ruin our relationship. We are your parents. We always thought you'd understand. Dad, she tore the letter in half. Not angrily. Just as a final period. They had made a choice. She had too. A few more weeks passed. At first, it was hard for Maya, not calling, of not asking, not offering help. For so many years, she'd lived by the habit of supporting, checking in, helping. That now, without this familiar role, a vacuum had emerged in her life. But she filled it with hobbies. Work. Books. Yoga classes she never had time for. Weekend trips. A spontaneous vacation to Colorado. She had to remind herself that no one expected her to be there for everyone anymore. And suddenly, a couple of months later, he showed up at her apartment building. Jake. Sitting on the front steps in sweatpants. His face puffy. Tired. Vaping. Got some coffee, he muttered as she approached the entrance. I didn't invite you. She replied calmly. Unlocking the door. What are you doing here? We have debts. He began without preamble. Credit cards. Medical bills. Mom is sick. And Dad's in the hospital. They need money. Maya was silent, watching him huddle against the cold, and felt sorry for him. But not like before, without guilt, just sorry. Like for a stranger. Sell the Camaro, she said. Can't, he muttered. It's not even running. Worth maybe $500 in parts. Then get a full-time job. Your parents left you everything. So, take care of it. He scoffed. Do you really think I should handle all this alone? Exactly. It was their choice. And you didn't refuse. You're getting revenge. He flared up. Because of the will. This is all about money. No. She interrupted calmly. Because I was always considered expendable, convenient, quiet, reliable, and you beloved, but helpless. But I no longer sign up for the role of caregiver. You understand they're just old people, he said more quietly. They don't mean to be cruel. I understand. Maya noted. But I'm not their free insurance policy either. He stood up and flicked his vape at his feet. You know, he muttered through his teeth. You'll regret this when they're gone. No, she said. I already regret putting up with this for so many years. He left. Never called again. But a couple of weeks later, a new wave began. First, calls from relatives. Maya. Honey, why don't you visit your parents? They miss you so much. Aunt Linda from Phoenix. They're your parents. Are you really that hurt? You can't be so cruel. Then family, friends, were all praying for healing in your family. Maya remained politely brief, or spoke concisely. We've worked everything out. And then came what she'd been waiting for, but hoping never to receive. A Facebook message from her mother, you're being selfish. We raised you. Fed you. Put you through school. And now you've just thrown us away. You'll remember us when we're gone. Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She wasn't crying anymore. She just felt something inside her finally breaking. It wasn't a breakup, it was liberation. For the first time, She understood that love that comes with the preamble, "you must," isn't love. It's a tool of control, of manipulation. And if you refuse to comply, you become a traitor. But she no longer wanted to be a good daughter. She wanted to be herself. Things were looking up at work. She got a promotion. Her colleagues began treating her with more respect. She made new friends with whom she could talk about everything without looking over her shoulder, without fear of judgment. Sometimes at night, Maya remembered how, as a child, she sat at the kitchen table doing homework while her brother played Xbox and her mother brought him snacks. And how they told her, "You're a smart girl. I don't take it personally. He's sensitive." But now she wasn't taking it personally anymore, because she wasn't expecting gratitude, recognition, or phone calls. Winter passed. Then spring. Then summer. A year had passed since the day Maya left her parents' house and never returned. She didn't follow their lives. But every now and then, news would trickle through. One day, her cousin, whom she hadn't spoken to in about 10 years, texted her, "You might be angry, but they're completely alone right now. Dad barely gets around. Mom's confused. They don't need anyone but you." Maya read it and didn't reply. Previously, such messages could have broken her. Not anymore. One day, a letter arrived. A paper one. Maya had almost forgotten what it was like to hold a real envelope. On the back was neat handwriting. Her mother's, "Maya, you must be happy. You got what you wanted. Now Dad and I are alone. If this is revenge, you've won. But know this, I don't recognize you anymore. You've become a stranger. Cold. Cruel. We didn't raise you like this. I'm not asking you to come back. Just know that when we're gone, you'll be alone too. I hope it was worth it." Maya sat in her kitchen. A mug of cold coffee. Dim light from the pendant lamp. The letter lay in front of her. She read it aloud. As if detached. As if reading someone else's drama. Then she set it aside. Thought for a moment. And smiled. She was alone now. But for the first time, she didn't feel lonely. A month later, her father died. She hadn't received a call. She found out by chance from a former neighbor who saw a post about the funeral on Facebook. Did she go? No. Not because she was angry, but because she didn't see the point. They'd crossed her out long before they died. They just made it official on paper. She, however, accepted it as freedom. After her father's death, her mother moved into assisted living. Her social security wasn't enough. The home health aide had quit, and her brother had disappeared. Maya pictured that nursing facility with its beige walls, the smell of disinfectant, and the clatter of trays in the dining room, and she felt calm, not joyful, not vindicated, just calm. 2 years later, Maya had a different life. Her own condo, new friends, a job she loved at a small gallery where she curated exhibitions for emerging artists. She was valued, respected, seen. One evening, she was going through a box of old things and came across a photograph of herself at 5, a little girl in a red dress, sitting with a teddy bear, staring wide-eyed at the camera. Maya stared at the photo for a long time, then whispered, "You deserved Rial. Unconditional love." She put the picture in a frame and placed it on her bookshelf. Not to forget, but to remember, the little girl inside her was no longer alone. Story 2 medical records are strewn all over the coffee table like fallen leaves as I sit in my parents' living room. The words of my mother linger in the air, thick and harsh. A kidney transplant is necessary for Edward. It's urgent, according to the physicians, as Mom goes through paperwork on the hospital letterhead. Her voice breaks. The process must be carried out in Guatemala. For situations like him, their experts have a groundbreaking method. In the chair opposite me, my brother sags, his face pallid. Since I've been here, he's hardly spoken, just nodding sometimes as Mom describes his alleged renal failure. I grab one of the papers and go through it for information. Something doesn't feel right. The doctor's qualifications don't match any I've looked up in my first Google searches, and the letterhead seems a little hazy. The medical language seems to be correct, although there are strange variations in the paragraph spacing. Mom adds, wiping up her tears with a tissue, the dialysis isn't working anymore. The doctor adds that without a family donor, his body would reject the procedure within the next month. The implication looms between us like a thundercloud, even if she doesn't continue the phrase. She pulls out another folder and adds, I've looked into travel arrangements. In 3 weeks, we would have to go. Since it's an emergency, the organizer says everything can be set up swiftly. I feel like my ribs are being squeezed together as my chest is constricted. As I put the paper down, my hands start to shake a little. Why this must be done in Guatemala is beyond me. Johns Hopkins is only 2 hours away. I say cautiously. Their transplant facility is among the finest in the nation. Mom dismissively waves her hand. The conservative American physicians want to keep him on dialysis until he passes away. This clinic offers state-of-the-art care. Greta, only medical professionals are aware, of late-stage renal illness. You're needed by Edward. I look at my brother. The grayish tinge I've heard about in renal sufferers doesn't appear on his skin. He seems fairly normal for someone who is apparently receiving dialysis 3 times a week. He is simply thinner and more exhausted than typical. A chilly perspiration appears on my forehead. My heart feels like it's trying to get out by hammering on my rib cage. I make an effort to regulate my breathing, but it comes in short gasps. I manage to state that I'll need some time to consider this. When Edward does eventually speak, his voice is remarkably powerful for someone who is reportedly near death. Sis, you don't have much time to consider. This week, they need a response. I feel as if the walls are closing in on me. I balance myself on the couch arm and pick up my bag before getting to my feet. Tomorrow, I'll give you a call. I swear, I'm on my way to the door already. My mind is buzzing with memories as I silently drive home. When we were adolescents, Edward asked me for $20 and said he would pay me back by Friday. He then promised to give me $50 the next week and $100 for an emergency. But he never did. I recall how Dad taught me how to throw a baseball when I was 7 years old, how we used to construct forts in the backyard as children, and how on summer afternoons we rode bikes to the corner shop for popsicles, then followed his visits to casinos with his pals. The late-night calls pleading with me to pay his rent for the one time. And the time he maxed up my credit card. Mom always stood up for him. Family supports family. And he's going through a difficult time. I tighten my hold on the driving wheel because something doesn't make up the hurried time frame. The abroad clinic. The diagnostic documents. The warning signs are coming from my accountant's head, which is trained to see discrepancies in numbers. I feel like I can breathe again when I go to my flat. Nothing like the disorganized piles of paper and dirty dishes at my parents' home. Everything is in its proper place here, including modest furnishings, spotless worktops, and bookshelves sorted by topic and author. As nightfall descends on the city, I stand by the window, take off my shoes, and drink a glass of water. What if Edward is really ill? If I refused, could I live with myself if anything happened to him? What if he isn't? Though what if there is yet another plot? One that is larger and riskier than any others. I grab my phone and give my mom a call. Before I make a commitment, I need time to conduct some study on kidney donation. I attempt to speak steadily as I tell her. She reacts quickly and incisively. You might lose Edward's life every day you put it off. Would you choose to live with it on your conscience? I feel the usual burden of shame pressing down on me as I shut my eyes. Before considering the gift, I would want to see his official medical documents rather than reproductions of them. I also want to have a straight conversation with his physician. You were always self-centered, she continues, her voice abruptly icy. Following everything that we have done for you. Greta, Edward needs this. He is your sibling. I watch the sunset paint the sky in orange and purple hues as I stand by my window after we hang up. I let myself face the reality I've been avoiding for the first time. My physical well-being, financial stability, and health are all under jeopardy. And the two individuals who ought to be my biggest protectors are the only ones I'm facing. As the sky becomes darker, I see a group of birds circling together before resting on a nearby tree. Feeling the first stirrings of resolution, I murmur to myself, I must be sure. I see Rachel in the office kitchen at Pearson Financial the next morning. For the last 3 years, we have had lunch breaks and sometimes happy hours while working together. She sees my reaction right away. What's the matter? It seems that you haven't slept. I pause. The words then flow forth. A kidney transplant is necessary for my brother. That's what my folks say anyhow. Rachel's gaze enlarges. That's serious. Which medical facility is he at? I add, dropping my voice. That's just it. For the procedure, they want me to take a plane to Guatemala. Something about the lack of specialist care here. Rachel puts her coffee cup down. That sounds incorrect. Last year, my cousin gave her spouse a kidney. Psychological examination, tissue matching, and medical board permission are all steps in the procedure. I was shown some documents, but something about it didn't seem right. You should check if something feels off. Rachel advises firmly. Greta, this isn't the same as lending someone money. Your body is this. Clarity flows out of her words like stones in quiet river. I feel less alone for the first time since yesterday. How would you respond? I inquire. Without hesitation. She adds, verify everything. There will be proof if they are speaking the truth. She doesn't have to continue the phrase if she doesn't. I return to my work and quietly decide what to do. I have to study up on renal illness. Much more. I spread out the folder containing Edward's medical records, like a deck of cards on my dining table on Thursday. With every unsettling insight, I feel as if my flat is too tiny and the walls are becoming closer. Between work shifts, I've spent the past 3 days studying kidney illness, transplant process, and medical facilities in Guatemala. It doesn't add up. Upon careful inspection, the letterhead on Dr. Ernesto Montoya's paperwork has pixelated borders. According to his credentials, he is a member of the Guatemalan Association of Nephrology Specialists. But my Google searches reveal that this organization does not exist. There is no website, review, or mention of Hospital Internacional de Especialidades Renales online. I look for trends in my online banking data. Mom requested me to contribute $2. 000 that was sent straight to her account for Edward's emergency appendectomy last year. An additional $1. 500 was needed 6 months before, due to unforeseen complications from regular surgery. I transferred the funds without issue each time. As I go over my transaction history, my finger shakes. Every significant withdrawal coincides with my mother's anxious phone calls about Edward's medical emergencies. Mom sent me a text, and my phone buzzes. Remember to file your request for vacation at work. The date of the surgery has been set for October 15. I feel a chill go through my chest. My brother's troubles have turned me into a walking ATM, and now they want a kidney as well. As I ring our family's health insurance company's customer care number, a thought begins to take shape. Hi there. I'm Greta Reynolds. I'm phoning with reference to Edward Reynolds, my brother. I need to know about his most recent dialysis sessions. When I first began assisting with Edward's medical expenses years ago, My mother handed me a copy of his insurance card, which I used to get his policy number. I'll verify those documents for you. In the background, the representative's keyboard clicks. I don't see any dialysis treatments for Edward in our system. MS. Reynolds. In February, we submitted a claim for a normal physical / My breath catches. What about blood tests associated with kidney function or visits to a renal specialist? Our records don't indicate anything like that. Ma'am. I sit still at my kitchen table and gaze at the wall when I hang up. The extent of their deceit spreads out in front of me like a huge, ominous sea. This is the result of years of methodical manipulation, rather than a single untruth. I open my email archive with trembling hands and look for messages from my mom. My screen is filled with years' worth of frantic demands for things like Edward, emergency, and hospital. I see one email that was sent 6 months ago. I was inadvertently cloned from Mom to Edward. Not the other way around. Greta is always reliable. Remind her that it's for medical expenses. Her inquiries are never excessive. The words burned into my retinas as I read them 3 times. They have been talking about me as if I were a resource to be exploited, rather than a sister or daughter. I begin a fresh spreadsheet, carefully recording all of my medical crises, my financial transactions, and Edward's known gambling activities from his postings on social media with horrifying clarity. The pattern becomes apparent. His trips to casinos and poker tournaments are always only a few days ahead of Mom's desperate cries for assistance. I spend hours compiling screenshots, bank statements, and discrepancies in my medical records to support my argument. With every fresh piece of evidence, the Edward thus believed I knew my protective older brother, who taught me how to ride a bike and protected me from bullies on the playground, disappears. A stranger who views me as just a way to solve his financial issues has taken his position. I come into a Facebook messaging thread in which Edward states that he owes a person called Marco $75, 000, and that the deadline is in 2 months. I look at the calendar. In 3 weeks. Marco's comments have a menacing tone that makes my stomach knot. Eddie, you had best take my money. No more postponements. You are aware of what follows. I feel as if I've been physically struck by the understanding they're desperate, not just dishonest. Desperate individuals may sometimes be harmful. Once again, my phone rings. The screen shows Mom's number. Today, Greta, the organizer, requires your blood type and passport details. If we are unable to confirm, another patient may be able to take the surgical slot. 1. Despite the storm inside of me, I respond, I'll get that to you tomorrow. My voice is remarkably steady. This cannot wait. Edward's health is fast declining. I look at Edward's story on Instagram, which was uploaded an hour ago. Pre-game rituals with the lads. A selfie in a sports bar with a beer in hand, and a caption. His grin was relaxed. And his skin was good. I must first locate my passport. It is kept in storage. The phone crackles with Mom's frustrated groan. You've always handled critical paperwork in such a chaotic manner. Tomorrow, Edward will stop by to assist you with your search. Beneath her helpful tone is the menace. They won't let me get away with it. I quickly realize my vulnerability as I bundle my proof into a folder after hanging up. Money is no longer the only factor in this. To settle Edward's debts, they want to sell my kidney. When I see Rachel in the break room the next morning at work, I wave her over. I show her the fictitious medical records and mumble that I have discovered the truth about my brother's condition. As I explain, Rachel's eyes enlarge. This is criminal. Greta, your organs are being trafficked by them. I know. I say, even as I say the words. The truth of it still shocks me, but I'm at a loss on what to do. They are my relatives. Rachel purposefully puts down her coffee cup. Dr. Patricia Vance. a nephrologist at Memorial Hospital, is a friend of my cousin. She can formally certify that these papers are fraudulent. I felt a flicker of optimism for the first time in days. Could you please link us with a nod? Rachel takes out her phone. Greta. 2. If you need a secure place to stay, you may use my extra bedroom. Family doesn't treat family this way. An hour later, I have a growing evidence file and a scheduled appointment with Dr. Vance for tomorrow. I'm not just suspicious anymore. I'm getting ready for combat. I'm sorting through my papers when Edward texts me. I found a fantastic flight offer. I had to make a reservation today. I'll be at your house at 6 to complete the papers and get your passport. I examined my brother's message, seeing its true meaning. Desperation. Not worry. It is exploitation. Not affection. The reality is now visible. As the facade has fallen apart, I have to know precisely what they're planning and record everything. I grumble to myself as I make a new evidence folder on my laptop. I feel anything other than dread and betrayal for the first time since this nightmare started. A nice, well-defined goal. Numbers don't lie. But they've undervalued me, assumed my obedience, and relied on my love to make me blind. And my specialty is numbers. I have a tightness in my chest that has nothing to do with the casserole dish I'm carrying when I go at my parents' place early on Sunday afternoon that week. At the door, Mom welcomes me with an overly cheerful grin and a hasty embrace. Did you bring any food? How considerate. She removes the plate from my grasp. Edward has been inquiring about your next visit. As she sets the table for 3, I accompany her into the kitchen. Perhaps there's a stronger worry, mixed with the familiar smell of her lemon furniture polish. Or shame. When I was here last, I took your iPad. I left mine at the office. I respond, putting my handbag on the counter. Before supper, I need to check a few business emails. If that's okay. Of course. My love. In my bedroom. It is charging. When I'm alone myself in her room, I move fast. My birth date is the predictable password that unlocks the iPad. Mom has never been concerned about security. With my heart thumping my ribs, I launch her email app and look for anything pertaining to Edward's medical care. The third email about the procedure's payment schedule is down. I open it with a tap. Winters. Mrs. Prior to arranging kidney procurement, we must collect the first payment. As soon as the extraction and transplant are successful, the remaining amount is payable. Within 14 days, our Guatemalan staff needs confirmation. My good lorches. Purchasing. Extraction. This is not medical jargon. Transaction language is what it is. I open the accompanying document after taking a picture of the screen with my phone. The letterhead is badly formatted, and it is a draft contract. My gaze focuses on certain words. 75美元. 000 is paid. Once a kidney extraction is successful, liability waiver for donors. After the surgery, there is no recourse. After the surgery, there is no recourse. No way out. I am the donor. I own the kidney. The amount paid is precisely equal to what Edward owes his creditors from his gaming. I continue to go through emails, making notes on everything. My breath catches as I see a message from Mom to Coordinator Martinez. Greta is obedient. Simply inform her that Edward will pass away, and she will sign the necessary documents, my mother's lips uttering my name, as a remedy for Edward's issues. Not as her daughter. My body. Not as a place I live in, but as money to settle my brother's obligations. Next, I look at her financial app. The sums that Edward has lost at casinos over the last 6 months are exactly the same as the payments made to this coordinator. No retainers for doctors. Not the expense of therapy. Debts from gambling. No abbreviation. I feel a peculiar calmness descend over me for the first time since this nightmare started. What has been gnawing at my chest? Anxiousness becomes something sharper and tougher. Confidence. From the living room, I can hear Edward's voice. Has Sarah arrived yet? I'm going hungry. I tuck my phone into my pocket after swiftly shutting off the applications to make sure nothing is altered. After successfully capturing the evidence, I go back to the kitchen, where the casserole dish is still warming up in the oven. I apologize for it. Work never ends. The table is where Edward sits. Beside his plate, the beer can is already halfway empty. In contrast to the gray pallor his mother described, his complexion has a healthy shine. He has a brand new shirt on and a pricey watch that shines on his wrist. He seems incredibly healthy for someone who is apparently near death. My dish was placed on the table. Edward, I made your favorite. Extra salt. According to your preference. With the fork halfway to her lips. Mom freezes. You are aware, Greta, that Edward's illness prevents him from having salt. Is I unable to as I feed myself. I see Edward consuming a substantial amount of the salty meal. Oddly enough, I've been studying renal illness. Dialysis patients adhere to rigorous dietary regimens, restricted fluids, minimal salt, and no alcohol. Before responding, Edward takes a large gulp of beer. My case is different. The Guatemalan doctors have me on special medications. What medications? You wouldn't understand the names. He shovels food into his mouth. Try me. I've been studying kidney disease protocols all week. Mom interjects. Greta, please. This isn't dinner conversation. When's your next dialysis appointment? Edward, I ask. Ignoring her. He pauses. Tuesday, where that clinic on Jefferson Street was closed for construction last month. Which dialysis center, specifically? Edward slams his fork down. What is this? An interrogation. I'm sick. Greta, I need your help. Not your questions. That's interesting. I say, setting down my glass, because someone with end-stage kidney failure wouldn't eat like this, wouldn't drink alcohol, would know their medication names and dialysis schedule by heart. Mom's face drains of color. Edward's flesh is red. You always were too nosy, for your own good. He snarls. And you always were a terrible liar. I reply, my voice steadier than I feel. I know what you're planning. And it stops now. Mom reaches for my hand. I pull away. Edward will die without your help. Her voice rises, trembling with desperation. Edward isn't dying. I say, he's in debt, and you were willing to sell my kidney to pay for his gambling. Edward stands so abruptly, his chair topples backward. You don't understand what I'm facing. These people will kill me if I don't pay. So, your solution was to risk my life instead. The calm in my voice surprises even me. Mom starts crying. The familiar performance that always worked before. We're family. Greta. Family helps family. Family doesn't traffic. Family organs. I say, standing, this conversation is over. So is your scheme. Edward moves toward me. His face contorted. You can't just walk away from this. I already have. I tell him, and if either of you contacts me again about this, the police will be my next call. I drive straight to Memorial Hospital, hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. Doctor. Vance meets me in the cafeteria, her white coat pristine against the institutional green walls. I brought everything. I say, pulling out my phone and the copies of documents I'd gathered. All the emails. The contract draft. The fake medical records. She examines them carefully, her expression growing more troubled with each swipe of the screen. Finally, She looks up, eyes serious behind rectangular frames. These documents are completely fabricated. She says, "This isn't kidney disease. The terminology is wrong. The treatment protocol is nonsensical. And this contract," she shakes her head, "this is attempted organ trafficking. Plain and simple." Rachel arrives, sliding into the seat beside me with a comforting hand on my shoulder. "What did they say when you confronted them?" Edward exploded. Mom cried. "The usual tactics, just higher stakes. You were right to question them." Rachel says firmly, "This is criminal." Dr. Vance nods. "I can document everything officially. This kind of scheme is more common than people realize." Unfortunately, a weight lifts from my chest vindication after days of doubt. I need to stop them completely. I say, the words feeling like a promise to myself. They're desperate enough to try something else. "We'll help you." Dr. Vance says, "You're not alone in this anymore." Looking at these two women, one I've known for years, a one I've just met, I believe her. For the first time since opening that first suspicious medical document, I feel something unexpected. Strength. I am not a solution to my brother's problems. I am not a spare part for harvesting. I am a whole person, and I will remain that way. 2 days later, I step into the police station, clutching my leather portfolio against my chest like armor. The familiar scent of industrial cleaner and stale coffee fills my nostrils as Detective Cooper waves me toward a small conference room. "Miss Reynolds," he says, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming in today." Detective Cooper is younger than I expected. Maybe early 42nds. With salt and pepper hair and eyes that miss nothing. He pulls out a chair for me at a table scattered with manila folders. "I've reviewed everything you sent over," he says, tapping a thick folder. "The falsified medical documents, the email exchanges, the financial records. This is textbook organ trafficking. The words hang in the air between us. Organ trafficking. Not family emergency. Not brotherly need. A federal crime, with my kidney as the commodity." "What happens now?" I ask, my voice steadier than I expect. Detective Cooper leans forward. "We build a case. Your brother and mother won't just face fraud charges. This is human trafficking. Conspiracy. Attempted bodily harm." I let that sink in. "My mother and brother. Federal prison. I need to warn you." He continues. "This will get worse before it gets better. They'll escalate their pressure tactics when they sense you pulling away." I open my portfolio and slide out a legal pad filled with meticulous notes. I've documented every conversation since Edward's supposed diagnosis. Phone calls, text messages, emails. Detective Cooper's eyebrows lift slightly. "Most people in your situation are too emotional to think this clearly. I'm an accountant." I reply simply, "Documentation is what I do." He nods, then pulls out a digital recorder. "From now on, record every interaction. We need them to incriminate themselves directly." "What about the coordinator, the person in Guatemala?" "We're working with the FBI's human trafficking unit to identify them. These networks typically target multiple victims simultaneously." I hadn't considered that before. That I might be just one of many. The thought sends a chill through me. For now, Detective Cooper says, "Play along cautiously. Express concerns about the procedure. But don't reveal what you know. We need to document the full scope of their plan." I straighten in my chair. "I can do that, Miss Reynolds." Detective Cooper's voice softens slightly. "Most people want immediate confrontation. The emotional satisfaction of exposing family members who've betrayed them. But real victory here means legal consequences. That requires patience. I think about the years of emergencies. And just this once, requests that drained my savings. The calculated manipulation disguised as family need. I'm done with emotional reactions. I tell him, I want them stopped. For the next hour, we map out a strategy. I'll maintain limited contact, expressing health concerns about the surgery, while gathering evidence of their intentions. Detective Cooper shows me how to activate the recording function on my phone, inconspicuously, and explains exactly what kind of statements would strengthen the case. Back at my apartment, I created a detailed timeline on my laptop. Every financial transaction, every suspicious medical claim, every manipulation tactic cataloged by date. The spreadsheet grows longer. Each entry, another betrayal quantified into data points. Rachel calls to check on me. How did it go with the detective? She asks. He's taking it seriously. We're building a case. I'm good, she says firmly. I've been going through those bank statements you showed me. There's a pattern in the wire transfers that might help trace where the money's actually going. I feel a surge of gratitude. You don't have to do this. What are friends for, if not helping stop illegal organ harvesting schemes? Her joke breaks the tension, making me laugh despite everything. Later that evening, Dr. Vance emails me her official analysis of Edward's falsified medical documents. Her letterhead from Memorial Hospital stands in stark contrast to the blurry forgeries I presented. The medical terminology is precise. Her conclusion damning. No evidence of kidney disease or medical necessity for transplant. I added to my growing file of evidence. My phone buzzes with a text from my mother. The coordinator needs your blood type information by tomorrow. Call me. I stare at the message, understanding now that coordinator means organ broker. My fingers hover over the keys as I compose a response that reveals nothing while buying time. I'll call tomorrow. Working late tonight. I died. I set my phone down and look at the wall of evidence taking shape in my living room. Financial records. Medical documents. Recorded conversations. Detective Cooper's card with his direct line. For the first time since this nightmare began, I feel something beyond fear or betrayal. A cool clarity settles over me. They've spent years seeing me as nothing but resource to exploit. Now, I'm becoming something they never anticipated. A threat. My phone buzzes again. Mother, Edward's condition is worsening. We can't delay. Deaths. Another lie. Another pressure tactic. I close my eyes and visualize the case building. Piece by methodical piece. Not just my protection, but consequences. Justice. The path ahead is clear. On Thursday that week, after gathering more evidence, I arrange the documents in 3 precise stacks on Detective Cooper's desk. The police station hums with activity around us. But in this small interview room, our focus remains absolute. Everything's here. I say, tapping the first folder. Bank statements showing transfers that coincide with Edward's gambling losses. Emails between my mother and the so-called coordinator. The falsified medical documents. Detective Cooper nods, his weathered face serious as he reviews the evidence. At 52, he has the steady gaze of someone who's seen every kind of family betrayal imaginable. Dr. Vance's statement is comprehensive. He says, examining the medical report, her documentation of the fraudulent kidney disease diagnosis will hold up in court. Is it enough? I ask. The question that's been gnawing at me for days. More than enough for arrest warrants. He closes the folder with deliberate care. The FBI Human Trafficking Unit is ready to coordinate with us. They've seen this pattern before. Desperate families selling organs of unwitting relatives. I exhale slowly, my shoulders dropping slightly. When will you move on this? We need 48 more hours to finalize paperwork and coordinate with federal authorities. He looks directly at me. Can you maintain the facade until then? I nod, thinking of the acting I've done for the past 2 weeks pretending to research kidney donation while secretly building this case. I've been playing along this far. What's 2 more days? Cooper's phone vibrates. He checks the message, his expression unchanging. The prosecutor wants to meet tomorrow morning. Your evidence is creating a solid case. I gather my purse, mentally reviewing my next steps. Doctor, Vance had been adamant yesterday. You've built an ironclad case. They can't escape this. Just maintain normal contact. Cooper advises as I stand to leave. Don't give them any reason to suspect. As I drive home, my mind calculates timelines and contingencies. The strategic positioning is almost complete. Legal documentation prepared, medical evidence secured, law enforcement engaged. No victories yet. Just careful preparation for the intervention that will end this permanently. My phone rings through the car speakers. Mom's name flashes on the dashboard display. I take a deep breath before answering. Greta, we need to talk about the travel arrangements, she says without preamble. The coordinator called this morning. I'm driving. Mom, can this wait until I get home? No, she says sharply. We've purchased the tickets. One way to Guatemala City. Leaving Sunday morning, my hands tighten on the steering wheel. Sunday. 3 days away. Earlier than the timeline Detective Cooper outlined. One way I keep my voice neutral, despite the alarm bells ringing in my head. The return date depends on your recovery. Her voice softens artificially. Edward received another call from his creditors. They're threatening violence if payment is delayed again. My stomach clenches. This isn't just about my kidney anymore. They might force me onto that plane. We need your passport tomorrow for visa processing. She continues. I'll stop by your apartment after work. After we disconnect, I pull into a grocery store parking lot. Hands trembling as I call Detective Cooper. They've accelerated the timeline. I tell him, voice low, they've already purchased one-way tickets for Sunday morning. This changes things, he says. Professional calm, asking urgency. Come back to the station now. We need to adapt our strategy. 40 minutes later, I sit across from Cooper and Dr. Vance in the same interview room. The energy has shifted. What was methodical preparation has become urgent action. We can't wait 48 hours. Cooper says, typing rapidly on his laptop. I'm expediting the warrants for tonight. Doctor? Vance places a hand on my arm. Are you all right? This must be overwhelming. I'm fine. The words come automatically, but I realize they're true. The initial shock of betrayal has transformed into strategic focus. What do we do about tomorrow? My mother wants my passport. Cooper looks up from his computer. We'll have everything in place by morning. When she arrives for your passport, we'll be ready to intervene. The judge has already signed off on the emergency restraining orders. He continues. We have everything we need. It's time to end this. Doctor. Vance nods. Quiet confidence in her expression. You've done everything right. Greta. Tomorrow. This nightmare ends. As I drive home in the fading evening light, I realize how much I've changed since that first day in my parents' living room. The panicked daughter has been replaced by someone calmer, more strategic. The frightened woman who once fled from confrontation now moves deliberately toward it, backed by evidence and allies. My phone buzzes with a text from Rachel. How did it go with Cooper? I type back. They're coming for my passport tomorrow. Police will be ready. For the first time in weeks, I feel a sense of control. The preparation is complete. The authorities are positioned. By this time tomorrow, my family will face the consequences of their betrayal. The final confrontation approaches, and I am ready. The next day, I jolt at the sound of aggressive knocking on my apartment door. It's nearly 8 in the evening, and I'm not expecting visitors. Peering through the peephole, my stomach plummets. Edward and Mom stand in the hallway, their faces tight with urgency. When I open the door, they push past me without waiting for an invitation. "We need your passport." Now, Edward's voice sounds different. Harder. More desperate than I've ever heard before. Mom drops her oversized purse on my coffee table, sending several magazines cascading to the floor. The coordinator called again. He needs the final payment today, or he'll give the surgery slot to someone else. I back away slightly. Maintaining distance, I thought we had until Sunday. Edward paces my living room, running his hands through his disheveled hair. Things changed. The doctor can only do it tomorrow. We need to be on a plane tonight. Tonight you said Sunday over the phone. My voice rises, despite my effort to stay calm. That's impossible. I have work. Appointments. Your brother will die if we don't do this now. Mom's voice slices through the air. Is your job more important than Edward's life? Edward stops pacing and steps toward me. 6 inches taller. He towers over me in a way that suddenly feels threatening. My creditors gave me 24 hours. 24 hours. Greta. Or there will be consequences. His fingers flex at his sides. Serious consequences. A chill runs through me. This isn't just about the fake kidney disease anymore. We're not leaving without your passport and signature on these consent forms. He pulls wrinkled papers from his back pocket. One way or another, you're coming with us tonight. I send... Mom nods firmly. After everything we've done for you growing up, all the sacrifices, the dance lessons, the college tuition, this is the one time Edward truly needs you. I notice her fingers trembling as she unzips her purse, pulling out airline tickets. The flight leaves at midnight. We need to be at the airport in 3 hours. Edward moves closer, blocking the path to my front door. Where's your passport? Get it now. Anna. My heart hammers against my ribs. The practiced words from all my conversations with Detective Cooper suddenly evaporate. Edward has never been physically intimidating before. But something in his eyes now tells me he's past reasoning. Okay, I say, raising my hands slightly. Let me get it from my safe. It's in the bedroom closet. Mom exhales with visible relief. Good girl. I knew you'd come through. As I walk toward my bedroom, Edward follows a few steps behind. Hurry up. We don't have all night. Inside my bedroom, I leave the door open. Closing it would only escalate his suspicion. I can hear Mom on the phone in the living room, speaking in hushed tones. Yes. We have her. Getting the passport now. Yes. She's cooperating. We'll meet you at the terminal as planned. With shaking fingers, I open my closet and crouch beside the small safe tucked in the corner. Edward hovers in the doorway, watching my every move. As I pretend to work the combination, I pull my phone from my pocket with my other hand. I type our predetermined emergency code to Detective Cooper. Red kidney now. What's taking so long? Edward demands. Stepping into the bedroom, I slip the phone back into my pocket. The combination is sticking. Give me a minute. We don't have a minute. He kicks my laundry hamper, sending it crashing against the wall. From the living room, Mom calls out. The coordinator says we need to wire the first half of the payment before we board. Did you get her passport yet? Working on it. Edward shouts back, his voice tight with frustration. I stand slowly, turning to face my brother. So where exactly are we flying to? You never actually said. What does it matter? Some clinic in Guatemala. They have all the paperwork ready. And this coordinator, he's meeting us there. Edward's eyes narrow. Why all the questions suddenly? Just get the passport. I'm trying to understand the plan. I say, working to keep my voice steady. If I'm giving up a kidney, I think I deserve to know the details. Mom appears in the doorway, her phone still clutched in her hand. The driver will be here in 30 minutes. We need to be packed and ready. Driver? I ask. What driver? The coordinator arranged everything? She says, impatiently. Hurry up with that passport. Greta. I glance at my phone. No response from Cooper yet. I need to stall longer. What about post-operative care, I ask. Who's going to take care of me after surgery? Edward's patient snaps. He grabs my arm, fingers digging into my skin. There's no time for this. Where's the damn passport? I wrench away from him. My pulse racing. I will never allow you to risk my life and sell my kidney. The words hang in the air like smoke. Mom freezes, her face draining of color. What are you talking about? She whispers. But her eyes betray her. I've seen the emails to the coordinator. I know about Edward's gambling debts. I know this has nothing to do with kidney disease. My voice grows stronger with each word. The police have been notified. They know everything. Edward lunges toward me with a speed I didn't expect. I backpedal until I hit the wall, ducking as his fist punches the drywall beside my head. You stupid. Interfering. His face contorts with rage. We're leaving now. With or without your cooperation. Mom rushes into the bedroom, frantically gathering items from my dresser. Get her purse. Her ID. We'll explain everything on the plane. Greta, you don't understand what's at stake. Edward grabs my wrist, trying to drag me toward the door. I resist, planting my feet and twisting away. Let go of me. I shout, louder than I intended, hoping my neighbors might hear. You've always been selfish. He hisses. One kidney. That's all we needed. Do you know what these people will do to me if I don't pay? In the distance, I hear the faint wail of sirens. Relief floods through me as Edward's grip tightens painfully on my arm. What did you do? Mom's eyes widen as the sound grows louder. What did you do? Greta Edwards' face transforms with realization. You called the cops. You called the cops on your own family. The sirens grow louder, unmistakably heading toward my apartment building. Edward releases me and rushes to the window, yanking back the curtain. We have to go, he says to Mom, panic replacing anger. Now. Mom stands frozen, clutching my hairbrush and wallet. But the coordinator. Forget him. The police are coming. I straighten my shoulders, finding a calm that surprises even me. It's too late. They know everything. The fake medical documents, the wire transfers, the organ trafficking scheme, all of it. The wail of sirens stops directly outside my building. Car doors slam. Footsteps pound up the exterior stairs. Edward turns to me, his face a storm of betrayal and fear. For a moment, I see the brother I once built backyard forts with, the one who taught me to throw a baseball on summer afternoons. Then his expression hardens into something unrecognizable. This isn't over, he whispers. Police sirens wail outside my apartment building as I back away from Edward, whose face contorts with panic. The pounding of boots on stairs echoes through the hallway. Mother clutches her purse to her chest, eyes darting between me and the door. What have you done? She hisses. The door bursts open. Detective Cooper enters first, gun drawn, followed by 3 uniformed officers and a woman in an FBI windbreaker. Police. Everyone stay where you are, Cooper commands, his voice filling the small space of my apartment. Edward bolts toward my bedroom, aiming for the fire escape window. 2 officers intercept him before he makes it halfway across the living room. They wrestle him to the ground as he thrashes and curses. Get off me. This is a family matter, Edward shouts, his face pressed against my beige carpet. Mother collapses onto my sofa, her shoulders heaving with theatrical sobs. There's been a terrible misunderstanding, she wails. tears streaming down her powdered cheeks. We were only trying to save Edward's life. Our son is dying. Detective Cooper holsters his weapon and nods to the FBI agent, who steps forward. She's compact and businesslike, with short-cropped hair and eyes that miss nothing. Marjorie Winters, I'm Special Agent Morales, with the FBI Human Trafficking Division. We have a warrant for your arrest. Mother's sobbing stops abruptly. Human trafficking. That's absurd. This is about saving my son's life. I reach for my laptop and open it. My hands steady, despite the chaos around me. Detective Cooper. Here are the emails between my mother and someone called the coordinator. They discuss payment schedules and transportation arrangements to Guatemala for kidney procurement. Cooper takes the laptop. Scanning the emails with the FBI agent looking over his shoulder, these match perfectly with the records we subpoenaed from their internet provider. Those are private communications. Mother protests. Her voice shrill. You had no right. We had every right with a judge's warrant. Cooper replies calmly. The same judge who signed these arrest warrants. The officers pull Edward to his feet, securing handcuffs around his wrists. His face is flushed with rage. But beneath it, I see something else. The trapped expression of a, this is ridiculous. Edward sputters. Greta. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. A knock at the door interrupts his plea. Doctor. Vance enters. Carrying a medical bag and a folder of documents, her presence brings a wave of relief washing over me. Doctor. Patricia Vance. She introduces herself to the officers. I reviewed all the supposed medical documentation for Edward Winters. I can confirm these are fraudulent records. They contain terminology that no legitimate nephrologist would use and describe symptoms inconsistent with kidney disease. Mother rises from the sofa, her hands trembling. Who are you to question our doctors? You haven't examined Edward. That's exactly the point. Doctor, Vance responds. No legitimate doctor has examined Edward for kidney disease because he doesn't have it. I've brought his actual medical records from County General. Obtained with a court order. His kidneys are perfectly healthy. Edward lunges forward despite the handcuffs, his face contorted with rage. I told you she was too smart for this. He shouts at Mother. I told you she'd figure it out. The room falls silent. Mother's face drains of color as she realizes what Edward has just admitted. Agent Morales steps forward, reading from a card. Marjorie Winters. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, attempted kidnapping, fraud, and criminal solicitation. You have the right to remain silent. As the Miranda warning continues, I watch my mother's face. For the first time in my life, I see her without pretense calculating. Cold. Assessing her options even now. Cooper turns to me. Your documentation made this possible. Greta, the thoroughness of your evidence gave us everything we needed for these warrants. The FBI agent handcuffs my mother, who looks at me with fury burning in her eyes. After everything I've sacrificed for this family, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. This is how you repay maternal love. That wasn't love. I reply, my voice surprisingly steady. Love doesn't sell someone's organs to cover gambling debts. As the officers lead them toward the door, Edward makes one last desperate attempt. The loan sharks will kill me if I don't pay. You're sending your own brother to his death. We're aware of your creditors. Mr. Winters. Agent Morales says, they're being investigated separately. Your financial problems don't justify trafficking your sister's organs. After they leave, my apartment feels strangely empty. Rachel arrives 20 minutes later. Having waited outside during the arrest, she hugs me fiercely. It's over, she says. You did it. Not just me. I reply, I couldn't have done this alone. 2 hours later, I sit in an interview room at the police station. Giving my formal statement, Detective Cooper records everything while Dr. Vance sits nearby, occasionally adding medical clarification to my account. The fluorescent lights cast everyone in a harsh glow. But for once, I don't feel exposed. I feel protected, based on your evidence and their communications with the so-called coordinator. We've identified him as Miguel Ferrero, a known organ broker operating throughout Central America. Cooper explains, "We've been trying to catch him for years." "Will they post bail?" I ask, my stomach tightening at the thought of them walking free. "Not a chance." Cooper says firmly, "The judge has already denied bail for both of them. The interstate and international nature of these crimes makes them flight risks." Agent Morales enters the room with a tablet. "We just got confirmation. Ferrero was apprehended at the airport trying to leave the country. Your case broke open his entire operation." Relief floods through me so intensely that I have to grip the edge of the table. "Were there others like me, Ba?" Agent Morales nodded grimly. 3 other potential victims identified so far. All approached through family members with financial problems. You didn't just save yourself, Greta. You stopped this from happening to others. Doctor. Vance places her hand on my shoulder. Your courage has exposed a criminal operation that's been preying on vulnerable people for years. I think about how close I came to boarding a plane, believing I was saving my brother, only to wake up missing a kidney, or worse. The thought sends a chill through me despite the warmth of the room. "The district attorney will want to meet with you tomorrow," Cooper says. "Your testimony will be crucial. But for tonight, you should rest." When I emerge from the station 3 hours later, Rachel is waiting in her car. The sky has darkened to deep purple and streetlights glow along the avenue. "I've made up the guest room," she says as I slide into the passenger seat. "You shouldn't be alone tonight." I nod, too exhausted to argue. As we drive through the quiet streets, I watch the houses we pass. Behind each lighted window, families exist. Some loving, some not. The simplicity of this truth strikes me with unexpected force. "What happens now?" Rachel asks softly. I turn from the window. I rebuild. I figure out what family really means. "No, you have a head start on that," she says, gesturing to her phone. "Doctor," Vance texted. "She's organized a support group for families affected by organ trafficking. She thinks you might help others navigate what you've been through." The idea settles in me like a seed finding soil. For the first time since this nightmare began, I feel something unexpected bloom in my chest. Not just relief or vindication, but purpose. "I'd like that," I say, watching the city lights blur through tears I didn't realize had formed. "I'd like that very much." As Rachel's car turns onto her street, I realize Detective Cooper was right. My methodical documentation, my refusal to ignore inconsistencies, the very qualities my family had always dismissed as fussy and obsessive had saved me. And now, they might save others. 2. Tomorrow would bring statements and legal proceedings, restraining orders, and reporters. But tonight, in this moment between the nightmare and whatever comes next, I simply breathe, filling my lungs with the certainty that both kidneys will remain exactly where they belong. I sit in the back row of the courtroom, watching as the judge denies bail for both Edward and my mother. 1 month since their arrest, and the reality still feels surreal. Detective Cooper slides into the seat beside me as the proceedings conclude. "They won't hurt anyone else," he says quietly. The kidney trafficking network had 3 other potential victims lined up. Your evidence saved them. Why? My throat tightens. I almost lost my kidney. And maybe my life? Outside the courthouse, a reporter approaches with a microphone. I've grown accustomed to these encounters since the story broke. Local news has painted me as some kind of whistleblower hero, though I never sought that label. Miss Reynolds, how does it feel, knowing you've exposed an international organ trafficking operation? The question hangs in the air, as I consider my answer. A month ago, I would have stammered, looking to others for validation. Now I meet her gaze directly. It feels like waking up, I reply, like finally seeing clearly after years of fog. That evening, I unlock the door to my new apartment across town. The security system chimes softly. A feature I insisted on. The space is still sparsely furnished. But it's mine. Safe. No one here can manipulate me into surrendering pieces of myself. Literally or figuratively. I unpack a box labeled kitchen and arrange mugs on an open shelf. My phone buzzes with a text from Dr. Vance. Conference committee approved your speaking slot for next month. Your perspective matters. The invitation had surprised me. A medical ethics conference wanted to hear from me about patient vulnerability and exploitation. I place my hands flat on the cool countertop, steadying myself. The trembling that once plagued me when thinking about my family has subsided. That night, I sleep without nightmares for the first time since this ordeal began. When morning light filters through new curtains, I stand at the window, watching the sunrise paint the sky in gentle oranges and pinks. A new day, a new life. The family that raised me wasn't the family I thought they were. I whisper to the empty room. The words no longer shatter me. 6 months later, I stand at a podium, facing a room full of attentive faces. My prepared remarks rest before me, but I barely glance at them. The words flow naturally now. Organ trafficking thrives in the shadows of family obligation. I tell the audience, the most dangerous predators aren't strangers in dark alleys, but those who know exactly which emotional buttons to push. My voice doesn't waver. The frightened woman, who once sat surrounded by falsified medical documents in her parents' living room, has transformed into someone I barely recognize, someone stronger. After the presentation, a hospital administrator approaches. Would you consider volunteering with our legitimate kidney donor program? Survivors like you help potential donors understand both the risks and rewards. The irony isn't lost on me. I find myself nodding. Back at Pearson Financial, Rachel grins as I place a small plaque on my desk. Senior Financial Analyst. The promotion came with a raise and new responsibilities, including helping the firm identify financial red flags and potential fraud cases. Looks good there, she says, perching on the edge of my desk. Almost as good as you looked on that morning show last week. I laugh. That interview was terrifying. You couldn't tell. You looked like you'd been speaking publicly your whole life. My phone rings the direct line I established for the Organ Trafficking Awareness Network. Rachel gives my shoulder a squeeze before slipping away. Knowing these calls often require privacy. This is Greta. I answer. A nervous voice responds. My name is Karen. The hospital gave me your number. My cousin needs a kidney transplant, and my aunt is pressuring me to donate. Something feels wrong. Once, such calls left me emotionally drained. Now I have systems in place, questions to ask, resources to offer, authorities to contact when necessary. I understand completely. I tell her. The words carrying the weight of lived experience. Let's talk through what's happening. 1 year later, I sit in a hospital consultation room beside a woman named Diane. Her hands twist anxiously in her lap as she describes her brother's sudden kidney failure and the family's insistence on traveling to Mexico for the procedure. They say I'm selfish for asking questions. She whispers that I don't love my brother. I recognize the tactics immediately. Real family protects you, not exploits you. I tell her, let's call Detective Cooper. He can verify if your brother's medical records are legitimate. Later that afternoon, I stand before a small crowd at the launch of the Greta Reynolds Foundation. Doctor. Vance beams from the front row as I outline our mission: education about organ trafficking warning signs, support for potential victims, and advocacy for stronger protective legislation. A year ago, I nearly became a victim. I tell them, today, we've helped identify 12 potential trafficking victims and provided them with resources to protect themselves. The audience applauds as I announce our partnership with 3 major hospital systems to implement screening protocols. A proposed bill incorporating lessons from my case now moves through legislative committees. After the ceremony, Dr. Vance approaches with a glass of sparkling water. From patient advocate to human rights champion, she says, "You've created something remarkable here." I think about the phone call I received that morning. Another woman, another family, using manipulation, another life potentially saved. Sometimes the most loving thing is recognizing when someone doesn't love you back. I reply, watching attendees mingle around displays, explaining trafficking, warning signs, and then using that knowledge to protect others. As I drive home, I pass the exit that would lead to my parents' house. I no longer feel the pull to turn there. No longer question my decision to testify against them. The guilt that once wrapped around my chest like steel bands has dissolved. In its place, purpose, clarity, and finally, our peace.